In 1976, someone in Circleville, Ohio started writing letters, threatening letters, letters that exposed people's darkest secrets, letters that knew things only close family members could possibly know. For 18 years, these letters terrorized an entire town. They accused people of affairs, threatened children, destroyed reputations, and may have even caused a death. But here's what makes this case truly disturbing. When police finally caught someone and sent him to prison, the letters kept coming, hundreds more, with the suspect locked in solitary confinement, strip-searched daily, no pen, no paper, no way to write. Yet his fingerprints were found on letters mailed while he was behind bars. The prison warden himself wrote to investigators saying, "It is impossible for Freshour to be writing these letters." But they kept coming anyway. This is the story of the Circleville Letter Writer, and the question that still haunts Ohio. How do you stop someone who won't stop, even when it's impossible for them to continue? Circleville, Ohio, population 14,000, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, where the biggest event of the year is the pumpkin show, where secrets don't stay secret for long, where nothing bad ever happens. Until Mary Gillespie opened her mailbox. It was the summer of 1976. Mary was a school bus driver for the Westfall School District, married to Ron Gillespie, living a quiet life in a quiet town. The letter she received was written in large block capital letters, no return address, postmarked from Columbus, 30 miles away. The message was chilling. "I know you're having an affair with Gordon Massey, the school superintendent. End it now or everyone will know. I've been watching your house. I know you have children. This is no joke. Please take it seriously." Mary wasn't having an affair. At least that's what she claimed. But the writer knew things, private things, details about her daily routine, her family, her life that no stranger could possibly know. She hid the letter from her husband. Maybe she thought it would go away. Maybe she was scared. Maybe she had something to hide. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived, this time addressed to her husband, Ron. "Mr. Gillespie, your wife is seeing Gordon Massey. You've had 2 weeks and done nothing. Make her admit the truth and tell the school board, or I'll broadcast it on CB radios, on posters, on signs, on billboards. Everyone will know. You should catch them together and kill them both." The letters were signed the Circleville Writer. Ron and Mary were terrified. They confided in only 2 people they trusted completely, Ron's sister Karen and her husband, Paul Freshour. Together, the 4 of them made a list of possible suspects and even sent their own letters back, warning whoever was behind this to stop. It worked for a while, but the Circleville Writer was just getting started. What started as letters targeting Mary Gillespie quickly became something much darker. In time, nearly everyone in town either received a letter or knew someone who did. Recipients were being accused of embezzlement, domestic violence, affairs, and even murder. The letters came with no warning, no pattern. Anyone could be next. A local businessman was accused of stealing from his company. A pastor was accused of having an affair with a parishioner. Elected officials received letters threatening to expose corruption. Even the sheriff got letters accusing him of covering up crimes. The Circleville Letter Writer knew everything about everyone and knew everyone's secrets. The tone was vicious, cruel, personal. These weren't random accusations. The writer had intimate knowledge of people's lives. They knew who was having financial trouble, who was drinking too much, who was hiding secrets from their spouse. The town became paralyzed by paranoia. People stopped trusting their neighbors. Was it the person next to you in church, the cashier at the grocery store, your own family member? The Pickaway County Sheriff's Office investigated but found nothing. No fingerprints, no DNA, no witnesses. The letters were always postmarked from Columbus, never Circleville itself. Whoever was writing them was careful, methodical, and enjoying every moment of the chaos they were creating. For months, the letters continued. Then, in August 1977, everything changed. August 17, 1977, a phone call came to the Gillespie house. Ron answered. His children would later say he became furious. He grabbed his .22 2-caliber revolver, told his daughter he was going to confront the Circleville Letter Writer, and stormed out of the house. His wife, Mary, was out of town, on her way to Florida. Hours later, Ron's pickup truck was found wrapped around a tree on a rural road. Ron Gillespie was dead. He was 35 years old. The coroner ruled it an accident. Ron's blood alcohol content was high, suggesting he'd been drinking heavily. Case closed. But Ron's family insisted something was wrong. Ron rarely drank, and there was something else that didn't make sense. Ron's gun had been fired. Once, the bullet was never found. There was no explanation for why he would have discharged his weapon before crashing. Did Ron Gillespie confront the person behind the Circleville letters? Police determined that Gillespie's gun had been fired exactly once before his death. They never learned why Ron fired his weapon. Was it suicide, an accident, or was it murder made to look like an accident? The Circleville writer didn't stay silent. New letters flooded the sheriff's office, accusing them of a cover-up, demanding a real investigation, getting angrier with each word. After Ron Gillespie's death, Mary Gillespie admitted that she actually had an affair with Gordon Massey, but it had started after the letters began arriving, not before. The writer had been right all along, or had the letters created the very affair they accused her of? For 6 more years, the town lived in fear. The letters continued. New victims, new accusations, new threats. Then, in 1983, the writer made their first real mistake. February 7th, 1983. Mary Gillespie was driving her school bus route, heading to pick up students at Monroe Elementary School. That's when she saw it, a handmade sign posted on a fence along Scioto Darby Road. It made an obscene remark about her young daughter, Tracy. Mary had seen signs before. The writer had escalated from letters to public displays, but this one crossed a line. It was about her child. She pulled the bus over. She got off. She walked toward the sign, ready to tear it down. That's when she noticed the string, a piece of twine running from the sign to a wooden box hidden in the grass. Something about it felt wrong. Mary stopped. She picked up the entire sign, post and all, and brought it back to the bus. She drove straight to the sheriff's office. When investigators examined the box, they found a loaded pistol inside, rigged with a crude trigger mechanism. If Mary had yanked that sign down, the gun would have fired. She could have been killed. The sheriff traced the gun. The serial number was partially visible. It belonged to Paul Freshour, Mary's brother-in-law, one of only 4 people who knew about the original letters, the same Paul who had helped Ron make a list of suspects. The same Paul who had sent warning letters back to the Circleville writer. The same Paul who was now divorcing Ron's sister, Karen. Paul Freshour was 39 years old, a manager at Anheuser-Busch. No criminal record, a respected member of the community, and now accused of attempted murder. He admitted the gun was his, but he claimed it had been stolen from his garage weeks earlier. He had witnesses who said he was at work when the trap was set. There were no fingerprints on the gun, the box, or the booby trap mechanism. But the sheriff had something else. Paul's estranged wife, Karen Sue, came forward. She told investigators that she believed Paul was the Circleville letter writer, that she'd once found torn-up letters in their house, that she'd seen him acting strangely. The judge allowed 39 of the anonymous letters to be entered as evidence at trial, over the defense's objections. The prosecution argued that Paul had written them all, The sheriff forced Paul to copy some of the letters by hand. Then, 2 handwriting experts testified that Paul's writing matched the writer's distinctive style, especially the letter G, which looked like the number 6. Forensic document expert Beverly East pointed out how unique the letter G was written and a few other numbers, which convinced her she knows who is responsible. Paul's lawyer fought back. He asked the jury, who hated Paul enough to try to get him into trouble? If you read the divorce decree, who stands to profit financially if Paul is convicted and goes to prison? But it wasn't enough. In October 1983, Paul Freshour was convicted of attempted murder. He received the maximum sentence, 7 to 25 years in prison. The town breathed a sigh of relief. The nightmare was over. The Circleville writer was finally behind bars, except he wasn't. 2 weeks after Paul Freshour entered prison, a new letter arrived in Circleville, then another and another and another. Hundreds of letters over the next decade, all in the same block handwriting, all postmarked from Columbus, all threatening, accusing, knowing intimate details that only someone close to the victims could know. The sheriff was furious. He was convinced Paul had an accomplice, someone on the outside continuing his work. He demanded Paul be moved to maximum security. The prison warden complied, but it didn't stop. Paul Freshour was moved to solitary confinement. He was strip-searched regularly. He had no access to pens, pencils, or paper. His mail was monitored. Every letter in and out was inspected. His visitors couldn't give him anything. He couldn't give them anything. The warden himself wrote to the Pickaway County Sheriff, "It is impossible for Freshour to be writing these letters. We have done everything humanly possible to prevent it. And I am telling you with absolute certainty, he cannot be the one sending them." But they kept coming. In one particularly cruel twist, Paul received a letter himself while in prison. It read, "Now, when are you going to believe you were set up? Don't you listen to what I say? I told you. You are going to get convicted. I told you. You won't get out. Circleville Writer." For 10 years, this continued. The town remained divided. Some believed Paul was guilty, that he'd somehow found a way to continue. Others believed an innocent man was rotting in prison while the real writer remained free. Then, in December 1993, something happened that would reignite the entire case. The TV show Unsolved Mysteries announced they were coming to Circleville, Ohio, to film an episode about the letters. Before filming even began, the show's producers received a postcard. It read, "Forget Circleville, Ohio. If you come to Ohio, you sickos will pay. The Circleville Writer." The threat didn't stop them. They filmed anyway. They interviewed Paul Freshour, who had just been released on parole after serving 10 years. He maintained his innocence. He begged someone, anyone, to reopen the investigation, to look deeper, to find the real writer. The episode aired in 1994. And then something strange happened. The letters stopped completely. After 18 years of terror, thousands of letters, one death, one conviction, and countless destroyed lives, the Circleville Writer vanished, just like that. No final letter, no explanation, no goodbye. Paul Freshour died in 2012, still insisting he was innocent. In 2024, CBS's 48 Hours reopened the case with new forensic experts and modern analysis techniques. The findings were shocking. Forensic document expert Beverly East examined 49 letters at the request of 48 Hours. She found Paul Freshour's fingerprints on approximately 12 letters that were postmarked while he was in prison. Fingerprints, his fingerprints. On letters mailed when he had no access to paper, pens, envelopes, stamps, or the outside world. East said, "I would go into court and swear on the Bible on the evidence I found. I am 100% sure Paul Freshour wrote these letters. I would say one person wrote all of these. But former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole disagreed completely. O'Toole, who helped profile notorious criminals like the Unabomber during her FBI career, said the personality profile of the letter writer, someone vindictive, controlling, who enjoyed hurting others, didn't match the man everyone described. She believes someone else set the booby trap to frame Paul. O'Toole thinks the person behind the letters, who went to so much trouble to stay anonymous, likely would not have taken the risk to set up the booby trap. A new suspect emerged from the 48 hours investigation, Paul's ex-wife, Karen Sue. A witness saw someone who didn't look like Paul near the booby trap location. They were driving a car that matched one owned by Karen Sue's brother. Karen was the one who told police Paul was the writer. Karen was the one who claimed to have found torn letters in their house but never showed them to anyone. And Karen stood to profit financially if Paul was convicted and sent to prison during their divorce proceedings. But Karen Sue was never charged, never even officially investigated. She's never spoken publicly about the case. So we're left with an impossible question. How did Paul Freshour's fingerprints end up on letters mailed while he was in solitary confinement? So what really happened in Circleville? Was Paul Freshour a master manipulator who somehow continued his reign of terror from behind bars? Did he mass-produce hundreds of letters before his arrest and have someone mail them over the years? Did he have an accomplice who was never caught? Or was he an innocent man framed by his ex-wife during a bitter divorce who spent 10 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit while the real writer remained free? The fingerprint evidence is undeniable. Forensic experts swear Paul wrote the letters, but the prison warden swore it was impossible for him to continue writing from prison. Both cannot be true, yet both appear to be. 18 years of terror, thousands of letters, one death, one conviction, and zero definitive answers. The Circleville Letter Writer knew everyone's secrets. They exposed affairs, crimes, lies, and betrayals. They had intimate knowledge of people's lives that seemed almost supernatural. But their own identity? That remains the town's darkest secret. And somewhere in Ohio, there might still be someone who knows exactly what happened, someone who got away with it, someone who's been watching all along, keeping the secret, knowing they pulled off the perfect crime. The letters have stopped, but the mystery, that's eternal. Because in Circleville, Ohio, everyone learned the same terrifying lesson. Your worst enemy might not be a stranger. It might be someone you trust, someone close, someone who knows everything about you, and you'll never know who it was. If mysteries with impossible evidence fascinate you, the mystery of the Solder children. So, what do you think? Was Paul guilty or framed? Drop your theory below. Subscribe to Vanished Mysteries for more cases like this.